Hello, everyone. We're back at it again. Today, we're going to be talking about Project 2025. This is the third uh, series of it, one-on-one now with Minister Rev Diane Dougherty. Thank you for taking my call. This young lady right here is awesome. Um Before I go into let her give her spiel, someone raised a question to me and said, Damita, are you putting Republicans and Democrats on your show and nonpartisans and etc.? Yes. So today we have a Republican that switched parties. So I'll let her tell you that. But again, I want to thank you. This is not for me to tell you what to do. We're here just to give you the information and you can go whatever direction you want to go, but you can't say that you didn't have the information. Thank you, Reverend Diana, for coming. Diane, let's talk about give you an introduction.
I'll give a real short introduction. I was a Republican, and I call myself an Eisenhower Republican because when Eisenhower was in office, his platform was very interesting to me. And at that time, the Democrats were overspending and out of control in our terms. And so I appreciated the Eisenhower platform. I maintained my Republican affiliation until JFK came along, and then I liked his platform. And once Reagan came in, and I saw that his platform was going to make my sisters, brothers, and the children I taught poor, I said, I will never vote for an administration that takes monies that could serve all Americans to themselves. And I have never changed because I have watched both parties for a long time, but I don't look at the party, I look at the platform. And today, the platform for the Republican Party, I'll use the word obscene, because this is very serious.
Yeah.
In 180 days, if Trump gets in, we will not have a democracy. We will not know what America is. We will see things that not just exhaust us, but we will see our families divided, and the amount of change that is coming is inappropriate and not good. It's not good for humanity. So I'm so thrilled to be able to have be on your show, Damita, and to have been able to really dig into the 922 pages. So I have two emphasis that I really studied on, and I'm really glad to be able to give this information.
Thank you. I want Reverend Diane, I want to give say this and you can kind of just give me a little piece because I have a lot of people from my hometown is watching, and she shared with me that I told her I was from Ohio, so she shared with me that she came through my hometown back in the day, and just give us a little bit when you came through Little Lima.
My friend Alice Nally was born in Lima, Ohio, and we would go down and visit her family. I, for a long time, 23 years, was a nun, a sister. And the sisters came to Lima to start a school, but it didn't work out very well. But that's where Alice really grew to love both the church and the community there. And they really raised her with joy and happiness. It's a wonderful, wonderful community. I myself am from Painesville, Ohio, and Connect, that was on last week, is from, where's she from? Cleveland?
Cleveland, Cleveland.
Cleveland. So look, we're three Ohio girls.
That sometimes they kind of don't understand us. But let's go into this, and I'm going to ask the first question, and I'm not going to go the way that I've been going with Project 2025, because I got the attorney Griggs is going to come on, and he's going to dive deep in it. But it's some areas that I want to touch with you, but it's also some questions. One question is, who are these who are these people that wrote Project 2025?
Well, I found out they're my brothers. A lot of them are Catholic men who are very radical in their beliefs and are part of our church and would like to take democracy to a point where it cannot be expanded any longer. I feel very betrayed by them because under their influence, I, first of all, would not be able to have a vocation. I would be assigned to a home and would have my children, were they girls, would have to bear children, whether we liked it or not. Our choices would end. I think every religious tradition has a wing of radical individuals that have beliefs that are going to be imposed on us. And they are the writers of this document. They in no way want to hear what our concerns are, what our voices are, and what kind of a society we'd like to live in. It is their idea that will be imposed on us. So I feel very betrayed and saddened.
Wow. So, how did this formula come about? Project 2025.
When the New Deal came around and it became not just popular, but the United States after the war gained access to economic prosperity. There were taxes that were put on the wealthiest. It was regulation and control of their monies. And the monies that these corporations had to give to the government did not stick well in their craw. So beginning in 1971, one of the members of that particular group, actually two of them, got together and edited a book called Future 21. And everything in Project 25 was written in 1971 in that book. I have it. So they have been planning for that number of years to take over the expansion of our Constitution, because it is their belief that we need to go back to the original Constitution where only landowners and men had the right to vote. Really hard for me to believe that, but that is their belief. They don't believe everyone should write. Everyone should vote. And so they came up with this formula. It is very simple, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. But it's for simple minds, for simple men. That's what I call it.
I like that. I like that. I like that. So let me tell you, why do you think that they think that this will make America great again?
Because they won't have to be bothered with us. They'll put us in, as women, they'll put us in our place. They'll take away our voice. And in the case of us who are religious, they'll probably put us in habits again. there will be a movement to diminish the immigrant population. I think they said 15 million will be deported within the first 180 days. African Americans will not have positions in which they can build wealth, because all of us, LGBTQ, women, people of color, immigrants, are not considered people at the highest end of value. We do not have human or civil rights. Only those that they deem, quote unquote, come under the banner of Christian nationalism will. And of course, I'm a Christian, I'm a reverend, I've been a sister, but I would still not have any vote because I speak against them. I am not loyal to this platform that they have arranged. So I just join all of you and I'll love it.
Let me ask you a question, because right now, if you look at America, we're so divided. Now you have people that look like me is joining in, and they're saying that this is the right way to go. Why do you think so many black people is jumping on this bandwagon when this is going to affect them as just as well as it's going to affect me? So why do you think they're jumping on the bandwagon?
IGNORANCE. Ignorant. We are ignorant of their plan.
Oh,
I've been studying this. I kept saying, God, help me to see. Help me to see who these people are. I can remember being in the convent and walking around talking about one of the priests that had just decided to evict all 11 sisters. And we got eviction papers. He was my dearest friend. And I walked around and I said, who do they think they are? Who do they think they are? And one of the nuns looked at me and said, well, Diane, who do you think you are?
mm,
Who do you think you are? And I kept thinking, well, I'm their equal. I'm their equal.
Let me ask you a question. Do you know how uh, you know how they want men and women not to be in the pulpit? Do you is this kind of the same feel? They don't want the women to be in nothing but yeah, yes sir, yes sir. Is that what they're looking for?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Only those that are loyal to the head. And one of the problems that we have always had as sisters is we are not loyal to the head of the church. We are loyal to Christ in the gospel. Our mission is to bring good news to the poor. And so when we advocate,
When you keep on talking, I said,
when we advocate, we put a stick in that beehive and they go buzzing. They do not like us to speak. And so therefore they have to get rid of us.
I just read something on social media, and I'm a social media freak, and I pay attention to what people read, and I also have a little discernment. And I read something about when you become so loyal to the pastors, I'm paraphrasing, and not the church, it becomes a problem. So do you think this is how Project 2025 is they're trying to take us in Project 2025?
Well, I'd like to read something that I wrote about that very piece.
Let's go read it.
One of the frameworks in men's mind and women's too, because they collaborate with them, is that there is a mental default, not of their own making, It's part of their DNA. This is how we grow up in society from the Neolithic period. So I told you I'd talk about the DNA of a strong man. 4 letters, DPWB. They have to dominate in order to build power for the purpose of wealth building. To the degree that we collaborate in that formula, we're okay. So in our story today, the belief is by these men and women is that they have made Christ of the gospel a warrior God. Now, I don't know how you read the gospel, but there's no warrior God in Christ in the New Testament. And there's no Christ in the Old Testament. But they believe that it's a myth that they've made up themselves, that they are the chosen race. They are a chosen race destined by this warrior God to inherit land and rule over it. This is what they call Christian nationalism. And in this case, in the United States, it's the white race. People of color are not included in this version of Christianity. Other races are not included. Other religions are not included. But their God is a white warrior God, a warrior Christ that will crush his enemies. That's us. We who speak and are not loyal. And they will also keep those left over poor by making laws. They will create a military to protect, a military will be protected by this God. There will be strong laws of governance to keep them in their place by using fear and force against their perceived enemies, and that's us. Anybody protecting democracy is an enemy of this version of Christian nationalism. The rights and the privileges of a few are God-given, and the others, that's us, people of color, the disabled, immigrants, LGBTQ, the sick who are elderly, have absolutely no value. And they are made to serve or be disposed of. And this Christ that they believe in has chosen, and has chosen, they have no empathy save for their own people. Governance will support the chosen few, and there'll be sweeping consequences for those who are not loyal. The winnowing fan. They say the winnowing fan will become active, separating the wheat from the chaff. We're chaff, they're wheat. Diminishing populations. They don't care if America is diminished. Governance is from the top down, and there's no pathway from the bottom up. Constitutional democracies must therefore be crushed in this form of authoritarian to take root, because a constitutional democracy demands power is shared. Wealth comes from the bottom up and the middle out. So in this version of authoritarians, most people will have no voice in this government, none. And any Black person that thinks that they're going to, I believe, is sorely mistaken.
Wow.
Unloyal members will be imprisoned, tortured, and killed.
Ain't that what he said?
Oppression of others that are not loyal will be through fear and violence. And that'll be the lived experience. We will think more about prisons, death, and deportations than about the joy of life. There will be no systems of checks and balances. You can't go backwards to correct something. And there will be no middle class.
Mm.
Every one of us will be taxed to serve all the wealth will be shifted to the top. And here's the kicker. You can see from this how all of this has been planned for such a long time. Corporations are considered as people by the courts that will rule for corporations, not for the people. And so America will become the power. Corporations will be the power structure, not a voting electorate.
Mm.
The Constitution will be null and void. We will not have another election.
Mm. And you say you won't have another election, and if you go back, that was been saying in the news that it will never be another election. Ain't that what he said?
Yeah. You don't have to worry about voting. We won't have to vote anymore.
So he letting you know what you just said, how it's going to be played out.
Exactly. Exactly. And how does anybody have time to see this? I mean, I just thank God for my life and for all of the troubles that I've been through, because it's through through being dipped into this hell, this experience, that I can see what they're about, because I've experienced it. And I keep saying, well, who are they? They're my brothers. They're my brothers and my sisters that support them.
Let me ask you a question. How do, because I'm just going to use me. When I get off key, Reverend,
Yeah.
or I go to the left too much, my husband always would remind me, Damita, uh-uh, don't say that, Damita. Uh-uh. You come back over here. How do these women, vice versa the men, be with these people and they go along with it? How can a mother now in Project 2025, women won't be able to get an abortion if the daddy raped their daughter, she have to carry that baby. How do women go along with this? Tell me, how do they go along with this?
IGNORANCE. They're not conscious. We're
Wow.
not conscious. I wasn't aware of this until it hit me through the head. One priest said to me, Diane, leave. What do you keep going back for more? And I asked myself, why do I keep going back for more? Well, I believe in the church. I believe in the gospel, and I believe that the church is a pathway to the gospel. But it isn't under these circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And people, if Trump gets in, even if he doesn't, this Project 25 is going to keep going on. They're going to try in multiple other ways. But we're not alert. We're not aware. But boy, I'll tell you, when that 11-year-old girl from Ohio couldn't get an abortion in Ohio after they passed that law,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's antennas were up nationwide. So it's almost like it has to hit you between the eyes before you can see what's right in front of you.
Right. Now let me ask you this. Let's dig into this education, because under Project 2025 you're not going to be able to say certain words. You're going to be books are going to be banned, and it's going to affect the minorities, the brown, the Mexicans, the Asians, the black folks. This is going to affect us. Let's talk about how it's going to affect the education part first.
Okay, well, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to impose on there's going to be a national law. They're going to change the Department of Education and give it a new name. That's one of the signs of their misdeeds. It's going to be called the Department of American Values. So
Mhm.
all of us are going to have to adopt and adapt to Christian nationalism and the values that they support, which will be very hard for me.
And you keep on talking. Someone just sent a question, so I'm just okay.
Okay, one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to shift all the federal funding. You've heard of the term bait and switch, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay, so they have started a number of initiatives, financial initiatives that were offered, quote unquote, to increase the education of African American children. I don't know if you know it, but one of the test grounds is Georgia. And luckily, I have been following this now for uh, uh, I think 10 years when Deal started to do the Opportunity School District. So he is going to sign into law the Department of Education Reorganization Act, which will give him the power to do everything at once. And remember, this is a plan that is going to be put in. They also have a book that they haven't shown us, which is Policies and Procedures. And so once everything is reorganized on day one, on the first days, these policies and procedures are going to go in, and this is how they're going to do it. They are going to shift funds by law. And any school that does not put in the Christian nationalist curriculum will not receive federal and possibly state funds. So what are you going to do if you're operating in a school, if you're a black school, and your principal or the district doesn't want to do it, and they take all the money away? You're going to follow a Christian nationalist curriculum. Now,
Well, what about the Muslims that don't believe in, or the
too bad,
Hindus? And
too
what about?
bad. Well, they don't necessarily get a lot of federal funding,
Okay.
but they do get state privileges, which will be taken away. And all those schools will have to be self-funded. They'll have to find funding outside of it, or be like the nuns. You know, we didn't get paid for teaching. We did it. We got a little stipend. That's it.
So this is going to affect everybody in education. Go from the teachers on down.
And that's the bait and switch. Remember, they said it's going to be state run.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they change this, make this law, and the federal monies are tied to those laws, the states have to follow through by putting in the Christian nationalist curriculum in order to get the money.
Now let me ask you a question. Now they want to take. They're banning books right now, like they ban the Mockingbird book and other books. So how is this going to affect? And they didn't want to do Black history down in Georgia. I think the law passed and they put pressure, they put back in the AP for the AP studies. So tell me, how would this affect Black history and history that deals with the minorities, the Asians, the Mexicans? How would this affect their studies?
It'll be just like the Catholic schools. We didn't have any of that.
Oh,
We didn't even have history. And in the Catholic schools, they didn't even teach, in 8th grade, they taught civics. That's it. I never got through a course in American history.
wow.
If you didn't teach it, if you didn't follow through yourself as a learner, you wouldn't know it. So we just have to have small group adult and child education outside of school. But I want to talk about this funding thing because I think it's
Okay,
important.
come on.
Remember, one of my favorite people is, oh darn, I can't think of her. Who's the senator? Who? Valencia. Valencia
Valencia
Scovel.
Scovel.
Just
Yes.
love her. And we have all of the we absolutely disagree on charter schools and vouchers and all of that. And I understand where she's coming from, because when this was presented, it was an opportunity for African American and low performing schools to get money to experiment with alternatives so the kids could get a better education. Okay, fast forward to today. Did you know that in addition to vouchers, which are now $6,500 per child, that money can go to private and religious schools where they couldn't do that before?
Mm.
Most kids from poverty areas cannot, families can't get their kids to those schools. So the kids in the schools get a reduction in their tuition. And who are the people? They're mostly white.
So basically, they're taking from the low end poverty people that's in poverty to go and fund the rich kids.
It is. Although that's not the formula that they put on it's the practice, but it's not the formula. Another thing they have is called the QEEC, the Qualified Educational Expense Tax. It's up now to $100 million. And that allows corporate and individual taxpayers to earn dollar for dollar tax credit. How many poor people do you know can put money in to get a tax credit? I don't know anybody. I can't.
I can't.
So who's getting all of that? Who's getting the benefit from all that $100 million?
Big corporations. So basically, this is all about the dollar.
It is. It's how the dollars are shifted, and people are baited to believe that they're getting something good in terms of quote unquote school choice, when the end game benefits corporations and also only a small portion of wealthy people already. They want the other thing is an educational savings account. You can take money for public education and shift it to public or private schools, and you get you can start a savings account so that that can happen. I don't know exactly how that works, but Trump calls them patriotic Americans who will do this, because then the state and the federal government is not putting money into public education. What's really scary to me are the number of kids that are not benefiting. I went to Guatemala, and they did this whole formula. They practiced in South America. They can't even find teachers to teach in the public schools in Guatemala because there's no pay for teachers, and the children are desperate for an education. That is the end result of this formula. Nobody can see it coming until it happens. But I'm telling you, this is the whole kit and caboodle. And I said, well, why would they do this? If you're a corporate, let's say you own a meat packing company and you need workers for your meat packing company, do you want educated workers? No,
Nope.
you don't need them. But do you need a low or a free or low wage workforce? Absolutely. People that absolutely need those jobs because there's nothing else that they can do. It's like kids that don't go to finish high school. What jobs are they going to get? The lowest of the lowest of the lowest. And you have all these corporations that are dependent, their profit is dependent on low-wage workers.
So let me ask you a question while you're talking about corporations. Do you think the corporations have become greedy? Because the reason I say this, because people say, well, President Biden them is the cause of food going up. They're the cause of the gas going up. I am a budget shopper, and I guess that's when you're in the military. My husband's in the military. You train. You're not trained. You learn how to stay in your lane and make the money stretch. And I go to stores, and I was looking at one product. I'm gonna use this product, the butter. Is it Country Crock or something?
Oh yeah.
That margarine.
Yep.
Last year this time, that margarine was about $4 for the real big one. Exact, maybe about $4.95. Today, it's hitting almost $9.
Okay, let me read you these statistics. It's on my
Okay.
webpage. You're going to want to get it too. 4 companies control 55 to 85% of the meat market. Why do you think meat's high? 4 airlines control 80% of air travel. 3 companies control 92% of the soda market. 3 companies control 73% of the cereal market. Why don't we hear about it? 6 companies control 90% of the news. So there you have it.
There you have it.
Corporations are people. That was 2011. And as people, they can just grab what they want because they deregulated everything.
There you go. Let me ask you, there you go. I want you, even if we don't have time to do it now, could you put that in the chat for me, and then people can follow? Because I know I got some people that's watching. They gonna say it's a lie. I've been getting texts, as we talk, but the proof is in the pudding. Let me ask you a question. How would Project 2025 affect people that get public housing, Section 8? How would Project 2025 affect them?
Oh, just 1 minute. I have some statistics. On the economic front.
Because it's all, while you're getting it, it's all about supply and demand in economics when it boils down. This is me talking. While you getting that, if someone showed you how they felt on January the 6th, do you think if they get into office that they're going to change their mind November the 6th? Do you think they showed you who they were on January the 6th?
I think the problem has to do with a lack of empathy. I think people are afraid of people. I think that there's so much misinformation. First of all, these people are supposed to be Christian. And in our churches, I was going back to sermons I've heard. And we've heard sermons on the gospel and Jesus, who was the most empathetic person. But in the church itself, it's really hard sometimes to find empathetic people. Like, how many sermons have you heard to love the immigrant that's surrounding you?
I don't think I've heard too many. I ain't even heard now. And I ain't gonna tell no lie. I ain't heard now.
And I look at all the schools that I've taught in, and they're all white. I know we, the sisters, made every effort to, if there were no Black people in the community because of redlining, we preached racism, against racism. And, we talked about loving your neighbor. That was huge, but you don't find that now. There's this emphasis on STEM education, science, no social studies. There's not a liberal, no liberal arts, no understanding of culture. And, the kids basically are being raised by media because everybody has a cell phone.
Mhm.
And I don't know about your kids, but my nieces and nephews are very culturally tuned in, and their best friends sometimes are avatars on a website. It's
Let me
sad.
ask you. Let me ask you because you said something on a show before that you were on. How do your family feel about you? I'm gonna say bait and switch from the Republican Party now to the Democrat Party. How do they feel about that?
It, most of our family was half and half.
Okay.
And I can remember going to bed and just listening to them in the kitchen because they'd be up till 2 or 3 morning talking politics. That's basically where I learned it.
Okay.
Because they would argue about policies and practices. My family was they worked on the railroad. Most of them were railroad people, or they worked in city government.
Okay.
And everybody was looking for the benefits. The Republicans worked in city government, and they were looking to provide services for quality. Most attention went to the kids. We gotta provide for all of these kids. And I think our dad was the first one to work and get a pension. And he died early, so that's what mom lived on. No Social Security. So I lived during those years when my aunt had to take care. When her dad died, she was assigned to my grandma to take care of her because she had no Social Security. So I grew up understanding the ramifications of how all of these services served people.
Mm-hmm.
How our city, even though they were Republicans, quote unquote, they served the people of that community.
Mm-hmm.
How that banter back and forth helped us understand what the policies were and the practices and how they were different. But there was something that there was always, like she talks about the Venn diagram, there's always something in the middle that everybody could agree in. And so I never grew up with this vitriol and same thing in the convent. Nuns were Republicans, nuns were Democrats, but we lived the gospel.
Okay. Okay. Let me ask you. Let me
So
ask you.
I want to read this here about the
Let's go.
you asked about housing and
Yes.
tariffs. And I didn't write it down. It's on another paper someplace else.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Let's talk. Did you touch? Did you touch about the turfs?
Tariffs, yeah.
The costs. You touched on that. We talked about corporate greed. How will this award reward the wealthy? Project 2025.
You have to understand that this Supreme Court and the formula that has been used by the Federalist Society and also the Heritage Group is set up to benefit corporations. That I spoke earlier when I reminded people that in 2011, the Supreme Court made a law, the Roberts Court, that corporations were people, citizens united, kind of an oxymoron. The reality of citizens united is, if corporations are people, they are the voice of the people. So corporations make the laws and the rules that will support the livelihood of those under them. If you are not tied to a corporation, then you are a person of no value. They're not looking at that. They're only looking at who serves, how corporations serve government.
Mm.
And
Go on.
when it is a formula for fascism, because a fascist government is a government by corporations over people. So were this to come to play, our government would be considered a fascist government, a step into fascism, where one man would rule. That's authoritarianism. And corporations would control all of governance like they have in Russia. And that would build oligarchies, very, very wealthy men. Did you know that in 1980, there were only 9 billionaires in the United States? Guess how many there are now?
How many?
Take a guess.
Well, Oprah is one of the billionaires.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we can't think in these numbers. I couldn't think in these numbers.
I'm going to say about 200.
815.
Wow.
How'd they get all that money? They deregulated. There were mergers. They created monopolies. And once all of those corporations have consolidated to gain access to power, remember I said I gave my 4 letters: D, P, WB, domination of the markets, builds power so they can control all prices to make a profit for building wealth for themselves.
Wow. Let me ask you a question. Under Project 2025, and a lot of people now is on this, is it called SSI?
Oh yeah.
How would this affect the people that get SSI and Social Security and all that good stuff? It's going to affect the retirement, so military. So tell me, what's your take on that?
This is very serious, very serious. What Trump would do is to make all of us that are on Social Security very poor. The first thing he would do is kind of like a bait and switch. He thinks, oh, I'm going to remove all the tax on your Social Security so you get more money. Sounds good upfront, but in the long term, if that money is not taxed, then what happens to the trust fund, the Social Security trust fund, that extends it beyond? It depletes it. So while we get something in the short term, we're going to lose out, and those coming behind us are going to lose out.
Something similar to the stimulus. They gave everybody this stimulus money and everybody was living their best life. So now corporations need to get some of that profit back. So what they do, they raise the profits. They raise the goods. Yeah. Let me ask you a question.
Well, I want to say one more thing about Social Security that could heal it. If you make $186,000, that's the cap for Social Security. If you make anything above that, you don't have to pay any more money. That doesn't sound right to me,
No.
especially when we have 813 billionaires. So what the thinking is they're going to eliminate the cap or put it at 400,000. That will bring in oodles of money so that the fund will be saved and we can move on. We can move on to the next generation, don't have to think about it. I think that's a good idea.
Let me ask you. This is opinion of my opinion and maybe not be your opinion. On November the 5th, do you think if we don't get the right person in office, that they're going to move forward on everything that they said in Project 2025? Do you think they're going to move forward?
They already are. The 19 states that are Republican states are putting into practice a lot of these mandates right now through
Even in
experiment.
Georgia.
Well, look at the education mandate that they're doing. They're shifting funds, taking monies away from public education, gerrymandering so that Democrats lose their vote,
Yep.
decreasing the amount of ballot boxes. So people in rural areas have to travel 45 minutes to put in their ballot. They've wrecked the postal office. So I mean, how many votes will we lose because they can't get their ballots in on time?
Right. Wow. Wow.
So
Let me.
yes,
I got a question because we're winding down to the hour. I'm going to do, after I get off this show, I'm going to do maybe a 10-minute Facebook Live because tonight is the first night of the DNC convention. I'm just going to do quick 10 minutes. Let me ask you, how will Project 2025 impact the media?
I think the media needs to take some time out and examine themselves, ask themselves, to what degree are they colluding with this project to end democracy by repeating and repeating and repeating Trump's lies?
I agree with you.
I think it's a sin in my book. I remember like when they were like when Trump and was telling all those lies about Hillary Clinton. And every single I made a little tally mark about comments that Trump had made and policies that Hillary had given. And the lies I mean, that's all they talked about was this disinformation, misinformation. If the media is going to go along with this, like 6 companies control 90% of the news, if they continue like this, I think they're complicit with our losing our democracy.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I totally agree. Look like they're I don't know. Because I can watch the news practically all day and I hear it and it's sad. In closing, what would you tell the voters in closing right now? Just your opinion in closing.
If you're a Republican and you are uncomfortable with Trump, if you're uncomfortable with anything that we said on this show, from the other 2 that were done and my own piece, open your mind. Think about the next generation. That's what I think about. What kind of a world do I want my kids to live in, and the kids that I've taught and future generations. I want them to live in a beautiful, diverse world where freedom of religion actually exists and we can become our best selves, where we can love each other and and bring others to the table. A lot of my family is LGBTQ. A lot of my family is. Do you think for once that I would uh, vote for someone that would exclude them from our national table?
Absolutely.
And if you would, then you're not Christian. Why go to church on Sunday? Read the gospel. If you are not good news, if you're not bringing good news, if this is not good news, then don't vote for it because it's bad news. And it is going to cost you and the future of America a heavy, heavy price.
I want to thank you so much for taking your time out for coming. I know you got a lot going on. I'm going to keep you lifted before the Lord. I want to thank you. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. Keep on fighting for the people. Our democracy is on the line. Again, you have a blessed day. Viewers, I want to thank you for watching. It'll be on YouTube and it'll be uploaded for you to watch later. Again, I'm going to go into a piece in 10 minutes. And then, but again, have a great day. Um, we love you. Keep on doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Damita.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.